Grade point averages are probably the least of the Hazbin Hotel cast's concerns, but considering it pretty much falls right into our job description, we're more than happy to take the burden of judging them for it on ourselves. In this war between heaven and hell, who are the greatest intellectual assets, and which ones fall on the other side of the spectrum? I'm Kifinosi with Wicked Binge, and this is Hazbin Hotel characters dumb to brilliant.
Welcome to the Hazbin Hotel.
As usual, we'll be working our way from the least intellectually gifted to the most utterly brilliant characters in the show. These characters are not the brightest! In what's likely an unsurprising revelation, the Egg Boys are taking the bottom spot on our list. It's ironic that the characters who are literal eggheads are by far the furthest from intelligent, but that's exactly where the charm of these little guys comes from. The Egg Boys are simple creatures who follow the orders of whomever has orders. They don't really question much of anything, and they're fiercely dedicated to the orders of, again, whomever they're serving, but that doesn't stop them from being generally incompetent. A perfect example of this comes when Alistair tells everyone's favorite character, Frank, to spy on the Overlord's meeting in episode 3. While he's successful in doing so, that night he immediately tells Serpentius about Camilla's angel-sidal secrets, despite Alistair telling him to keep it between the two of them. He even mentions the fact that he wasn't supposed to tell anyone, making this even more of a mark against his IQ score. By Serpentius' own admission, they just say crazy stuff all the time. Eventually, you just have to take it with a grain of salt.
Now go clean my quarters this instant!
The Egg Boys are certainly loyal, but if you're looking for much more than that, you might be best looking, I don't know, anywhere else. Up next we have the hotel's pets, who fall into a similar category. Fat Nuggets, Kiki, Razzle, and Dazzle are certainly nowhere near as insane or occasionally incompetent as the Egg Boys. In fact, they're perfectly darn functional. They demonstrate the ability to follow simple orders and even have a surprising amount of emotional intelligence, like Razzle and Dazzle bringing Charlie tissues when she's crying, or Fat Nuggets having a sixth sense for when Angel's upset. They're not geniuses, but they're simple creatures who are doing their jobs just fine. But obviously, being that they're pets, they don't really have the same level of intellect as the humanoid characters. Rounding out this category, we have the first proper member of the hotel staff, Nifty. To Nifty's credit, she's at least a semi-competent housekeeper. That does not, however, cancel out the more impulsive and unstable aspects of her personality. Nifty has a childlike state of mind, generally just doing whatever she feels like until someone tells her to do something else, for better or for worse. Nifty often misunderstands simple instructions, from not realizing that she actually needs to say her lines to the camera during a commercial shoot, to mistaking Charlie's encouragement to stab any angel she sees as a request to stab Angel. But who knows? For all we know about her so far, this could be an Izzy from Total Drama case where her insanity is more like the cherry on top of a secretly brilliant mind, or maybe, like we said in a previous video, it's a Gur from Invader Zim case where she's just plain crazy.
I'm ready to punish some bad boys.
Either way, one thing's for sure, she definitely followed Charlie's instructions by the end of the day, cause Adam is not coming back from that. Next, we move on to the characters who aren't particularly dumb nor smart. These characters have adequate intelligence. First up, we have probably the most average intelligence characters in the cast, Katie Killjoy and Tom Trench. Really, these co-anchors of Channel 666 News both demonstrate a total lack of sensitivity for others, from Katie abusing Tom on camera to Tom making risque comments about women, also on camera. They don't have any particularly brilliant traits, but they're both competent enough to do their jobs just fine, albeit rather unprofessionally. Bursting onto the scene next is Cherry Bomb. With an arsenal every bit as explosive as her personality, Cherry is a reckless anarchist who's always itching for a fight. She's a skilled fighter who has excellent proficiency with weapons, particularly, you guessed it, explosives. She's able to not only organize her own attacks against other sinner demons like Serpentius, but also manages to use her destructive skills for the good of others, like helping Angel protect the hotel from the angels.
Here, hold this.
While Cherry isn't brilliant by any means, she isn't really trying to be. To be blunt, she's a free spirit who likes blowing stuff up, and if that means an occasional bit of property damage, so be it. Though we will compliment her on her opportunistic side, shown when she invited all the hotel staff out with her and Angel when Charlie offered her money to do so. She's not gonna be discovering the cure to cancer, but if you need someone to help you blow up some bad guys, Cherry's your girl. It pains us to say it, but Angel's boss, Valentino, has made it higher than his ride or die bestie. Can you guys tell what our stance on old Val is yet? Being a total creep who uses his weird moth roofy saliva stuff to brainwash people into working for him, there's no low this nasty little mothball won't sink to in order to get what he wants. There's also very little that will stop him from doing what he wants in general, no matter how reckless. He often has to be reeled in by Vox before he does something stupid, like attacking the hotel just because Angel happens to be staying there.
Which of these makes me look sexier?
He's he's frankly a detriment to his own brand, and Alistair's roast to Vox would have been better placed against him. He really would be powerless without the other Vs. For all his influence, Val isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. His influence over his workers is due in large part to the aforementioned roofie saliva. As threatening as he can be, he's more of a superpowered sleazy brute than anything else. The best we could give him as a compliment on his intellectual side is that he has pretty good business skills, but that's all he's getting from us. Now it's time to talk about the season's more central villain, Adam. While Adam is a huge threat to demonkind, that threat does not come from his intellectual side. We'll give him this. He has reasonably good leadership skills, is a skilled fighter, and managed to convince Sarah, with Loot's help, to give her blessing to the idea of exterminations to prevent a possible uprising. That said, Adam's greatest weakness is easily his impulsive, arrogant attitude. He wants to handle problems right as they pop up, in whatever way he feels like it. Reason be darned.
It's almost out of time. Guess we should get into it.
We see this most notably in episode 6, Welcome to Heaven, in which he wants to fight Vaggie and Charlie immediately upon seeing them in heaven, totally ignoring the countless onlookers who would see this display of violence. Later in the episode, he slips up and ends up revealing the exterminations to the entirety of heaven, the one thing Sarah told him not to do, even after being warned about the danger of doing precisely that by Loot earlier in the episode.
Don't shush me.
If you had any doubts about his ego, look no further than his temper tantrum right before being defeated, which basically proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that, to him, this was never about protecting heaven, it was about stepping on the people beneath him. Very classy. From an extermination angel to a hotel vacation angel, next up is Angel Dust. The first guest of Hazbin Hotel has similar skills to his best friend Cherry, proficiency in weapons and a shrewd opportunistic side. He's able to think of some creative ways to use his work as a porn star and the skills that come with it to further the hotel's progress and get himself out of a variety of bad situations.
Do you really expect me to memorize this whole script?
Angel is also highly perceptive. He can tell when someone spiked his drink and often picks up on potentially dangerous situations before those around him, like when he protected Nifty from Valentino in a nightclub. His struggle with self-loathing can sometimes lead him to stifling his own potential, but Angel Dust has overall proven to be a reliable friend to the hotel, both morally and intellectually, which earns him a modest but respectable place on our list. Now it's time to talk about the princess of hell herself, Charlie Morningstar. Charlie is the go-getting heart and soul of the Hazbin Hotel, a girl with a huge heart for the people whom the afterlife has mostly left behind to rot. Determined to save her routinely exterminated people, Charlie is eternally optimistic and wants to see the good in everyone, which is simultaneously her greatest strength and weakness. Look, we love Charlie as much as everyone else, but it's impossible to deny that her optimism can sometimes go straight into naive territory. We see examples of this in her few attempts to use her political power as the princess of hell to further her goals. She fails to convince Valentino to give Angel some time off from work, and actually ends up making Angel's day even rougher by ticking his boss off. She also gets the exterminations moved up on 2 separate occasions, and while the extent of her responsibility for that is debatable, it's definitely something worth mentioning either way. Her book smarts are pretty solid, given that she was able to plot out the hotel idea and use various connections to get the ball rolling, but Charlie gets in over her head pretty often, the results of which can be disastrous. While you can bet that Charlie will do her darndest to clean up her messes, those messes can be pretty severe. She's capable, but she's usually going to need a lot of helping hands, and that keeps us from placing her any higher in the context of this list. Slithering into the tail end of this category is the lovable Sir Pentious. This supervillain turned super friend is difficult to rank for just how different his smarts are in different areas, but we think we've got the perfect way to explain it. Sir Pentious is a genius in terms of book smarts, but utterly hopeless in terms of street smarts. Let us explain. Sir Pentious is able to design a variety of deadly weapons of mass destruction entirely on his own. Well, with the help of the Egg Boys, but I mean, come on, we know they aren't doing much of the thinking.
Wait! I can't fight without my minions!
This shows that Sir Pentious has an extremely creative mind, excellent engineering skills, and overall combat prowess. That said, then there are his street smarts. Sir Pentious tends to be extremely naive and occasionally inept, from his intensely awkward flirtations with Cherry that lead to him buying drinks for and banging everyone in a nightclub, to thinking that Angel calling him daddy means that he's actually his son. While these traits are as endearing as they are hilarious, they're unfortunately keeping Pentious from ending up any higher on our list, but his heart more than makes up for his lack of brains. And the giant death ray blimp, that's kind of impressive too. We wish he'd gotten to use that longer. Now we're getting somewhere with the smarts. These characters are super sharp. First up is local hellbound influencer Velvet. The second of the V's, Velvet is a fashion-obsessed internet celebrity who cares more for appearances than anything else. She wears her heart, or sometimes lack of a heart, on her sleeve and doesn't hold back from telling people how she really feels, even if they're in higher positions of authority. This is most prominent in her relationship with Carmilla, who she shows practically zero respect for, but her reason for this is rocky to say the least. While Velvet's ambition to wage war against heaven after finding out that angels can be killed is debatable relatively respectable, Carmilla and Zestial do a great job of pointing out the flaws in her logic. The fact is, Hell isn't prepared for all-out war, and Velvet being quick to pitch the idea doesn't exactly paint her intelligence in the most flattering light.
Now, Shyr, take care of the piss baby.
Nonetheless, we give her points for her ambition and the successful amount of control she hovers over her portion of Hell's media. Former extermination angel Vaggie is next. Getting the obvious out of the way first, Vaggie managed to hide her true identity as an angel from her best friend Charlie, her girlfriend Charlie, for years. That alone showcases some pretty great skills of deception, albeit not great honesty. On top of that, Vaggie acts as a voice of reason for Charlie, offering her both emotional support and logical advice in her efforts to build up the hotel. She can also be quite persuasive, using her knowledge that Carmilla killed an angel to essentially strong-arm her into coughing up their weaknesses and training her. The worst we could reasonably say about Vaggie is that she can be a bit hot-headed, which, I mean, it's Hell. Isn't everyone's head hot here? Well, if you didn't like that joke, you're not alone. Husk is no easy audience to make laugh either. This former con artist Overlord proved to have some pretty great gambling skills, specifically in the business of gambling with souls. You could honestly argue that doing this in general is kind of a dumb move, but I guess with great power comes great temptation to gamble or something. In any case, Husk's skills of deception and ability to usually keep a cool head earn him a lot of points, but his weaknesses come when that cool-headed persona slips up. Most notably when he gambled with Alistair and lost his soul, thus effectively ruining his afterlife and becoming enslaved to him.
You may own my soul, but I ain't your fucking pet.
Really though, the only reason he isn't higher is that the remaining characters are just that smart. Next up we have Rosie. One of Alistair's many friends across Hell, Rosie is the leader of Cannibal Town, using her influence to keep the admittedly horrifying place under control and well organized. She has great people skills shown by how organized the town is in general, at least by Cannibal Demon standards. She's able to not only rally the people of the town with her words, but to advise the people-pleasing Charlie to do the same, and if that weren't enough, Rosie can even offer some solid relationship advice. Honestly, for a cannibal, you could definitely do a lot worse than Rosie, in pretty much every sense of the word. Now we finally return to heaven to talk about Loot. Loot is the brains to Adam's brawn. Note, she also has brawn. She often finds herself reeling Adam in whenever he goes too far, like the aforementioned time she kept him from spilling about the exterminations. In terms of intelligence, Loot is basically all of Adam's leadership skills, but with his impulsivity replaced by some impressive strategic skills.
Angels don't make mistakes.
She never lets her emotions take over, even when witnessing Adam's death, which brings her to tears, but she's smart enough to call off the current battle so that no more casualties are suffered, though she's as hot-headed as she is strong-willed, and while that feels like splitting hairs, we really have to do that to order these last few. Moving on to an admittedly less morally questionable angel, next is Sarah. Regardless of anyone's views on her approval of Adam and Loot's genocides, Sarah has proven herself to be an intellectually, if not morally, reliable leader. Every decision she makes is calculated with the consideration of heaven's safety in mind, and given St. Peter and Emily's musical assurance,
Every single day in heaven is a happy day.
we can't say that she seems to be doing a bad job. That said, her stuck-in-her-old-ways mentality sometimes leads her to deny or outright ignore any new ideas or evidence that conflicts with her own ways of thinking and acting. That's why we're placing her just below Emily, the last character in this category. We actually ended up placing Emily a lot higher than we expected, and frankly, we're pretty darn happy about that. Personality-wise, she's practically Charlie's heaven-dwelling doppelganger. Eternally optimistic, sees the good in everyone, and wants every human soul to have a fair shot.
Yeah, let's give him a chance.
But Emily is much more apt in using her political authority, and less worried over what others think. When she finds out about Sarah approving of the exterminations and hiding it from the people, she openly tells her that she's disgusted and no longer respects her. Seeing the clear evidence in front of her, Emily's willing to hear Charlie out and accepts that it's possible for sinners to be reformed and even redeemed, expressing her support of Charlie's efforts. What's more is that we see that she was completely right in the last episode, where Serpentius successfully reaches heaven. The look on her face next to Sarah's tells you all you need to know, so we're rooting for this young angel to make an even bigger mark in season 2. For now, she's got a spotless track record when it comes to her intuition, and is only kept out of the top category because of her lack of experience compared to our final 5. Finally, we've reached the highest category of intelligence. These characters are truly brilliant. Kicking off our top 5 is Lucifer Morningstar, Charlie's until recently distant father. Don't let his long-winded, depressive state fool you. Lucifer's leadership skills and creative intuition were strong enough to get him cast down from heaven. He was a dreamer with great visions, but his rebellious actions tragically led to evil infiltrating Earth, and so he was forced to bear the guilt of responsibility for humanity's evils. But while Lucifer hasn't taken a lot of W's so far, he's still remarkably inventive and a shrewd opportunist. We're not just saying that because of his skill at creating incredible rubber duckies either, though that is part of it.
Take that,
depression.
Lucifer's devoted himself to support Charlie's dreams no matter the cost. He's been a great asset to the team so far, but before we move him any higher, he's gonna need to prove himself a bit more. Causing the downfall of a perfect world is a pretty big mark against you, man, accident or not. And the fact is that being someone with pure angelic power, he's practically at an advantage already, so from an intellectual standpoint, this feels like the fairest place to put him. Landing just outside of our top 3 is the man with currently the most influence over Hell's media, Vox. The age-old advice of don't get too close to that screen is certainly applicable to our favorite diabolical TV, because this guy's an absolute mastermind. He's able to manipulate people on both large and small scales, from turning the looming extermination threat into an advertisement for Vox angelic security, to successfully talking Valentino down from attacking the hotel on impulse.
Now that's why they pay you the big bucks.
He's also not above using people as disposable pawns, seen most notoriously when he convinced Sir Pentious to work as a spy in the Hazbin Hotel to see what Charlie and Alistair were up to, and upon his failure, basically told Pentious to unalive himself. If there's anything we could fault the guy for from an intellectual standpoint, it'd be his feud with Alistair, which is so intense that he'll drop anything else going on to focus on taking him down. But even then, that's just smart business considering they're arch rivals. We're in exclusively Overlord territory now. The bronze medal of intellect goes to Carmilla. A graceful fighter and caring mother to her children, Carmilla acts as more or less a voice of reason among the Overlords. For starters, she's the only one so far who's been smart enough to figure out that the only thing capable of killing angels is their own weaponry, and she manages to hide the fact that she herself killed one to defend her family from everyone but Zestial and, unknowingly, Frank. While she's understandably hostile to Vaggie when she first confronts her, she ultimately decides to teach her how to fight angels for the sake of Hell's safety. On top of this, she's the top weapons dealer in Hell who's even been able to forge Hell's very own angelic weapons to protect her people. There's not much of a weakness in this Overlord's brain, but we've decided to give the next spot to a more sinister Overlord. Runner-up to the top spot, the silver medal of intellect, is going to Alistair. Look, he might not be characterized as a genius before anything else, but Alistair seems to always be plenty of steps ahead most people around him. He managed to topple high-ranking Overlords at his debut and broadcasted their screams as a display of power and intimidation. He's a top-shelf opportunist as well, using every opportunity that comes his way to further his own plans to conquer Hell and gain his own freedom. At every twist and turn, Alistair is coming up with some new step to his ultimate goal of something, at least.
Yeah, I was going for hilarious.
From getting a royal favor from Charlie by helping her protect the hotel from the extermination angels, to using Frank the Egg Boy to spy on the Overlord's meeting, he constantly holds leverage over just about everybody in his afterlife. Alistair is the definition of terrifyingly brilliant. If and when he becomes freed from the constraints of his deal, it's sure to be an excellent show. And yet, I can't deny that little part of myself that's rooting for him out of sheer entertainment-driven curiosity, but how is he not at number 1? While we were tempted to give Alistair the gold, we feel that the most intelligent character in Hazbin has got to be the oldest of the Overlords, Zestial. Zestial is truly wise beyond his years, or at least wise at his years, but regardless, that's a lot of years. He's perhaps the most calm and collected character in the entire show. While we haven't seen much of him yet, he's a level-headed leader who, like Camilla, refuses to go along with Velvet's plan to attack Heaven due to not having enough evidence. He also manages to stay even calmer than Camilla, showing that he can keep a cool head under any amount of pressure. Despite how intensely feared he is throughout Hell, Zestial does not default to violence nor intimidation to get his way. He's shockingly level-headed and compassionate, which isn't at all what you'd expect from the guy who's supposedly Hell's oldest Overlord. It may be controversial to give him the gold medal given just how little screen time he's had so far, but Zestial's centuries of experience combined with his excellent composure make up a demon who's earned even the respect of a notorious radio demon, and if that's not convincing enough, just look at that top hat!